Hello, this is Coach Tim Campbell, and I'm your host for the Self-Made is a Myth, Make a Difference Together show, where we're talking with successful business owners to hear their stories of the journey to building their business. And because we know that achieving success in business is not something that we do on our own, we're taking time to recognize the folks who helped us to excel. Today, I'm excited to have a fellow business owner from Ohio with us today. My guest is a piano player and plays in a cover band. That is cool. We're going to learn a little bit more about that. He enjoys hiking and cycling, spending time with his family, and he's most proud of being part of the leadership team that started 2 colleges of pharmacy. It's my pleasure to welcome Marc to the show today. Hello, Marc.
Hi there. Glad to be here.
Fantastic. Well, hey, let's start with having you introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit of your personal story, like where you were born, where you live, a little bit about your family.
Sure thing. So I actually grew up in Northeast Ohio and in a little town called Champion, but it's nestled between the Cleveland and Youngstown areas, and spent my entire early life there. Had graduated high school. I was a runner, so I was part of the cross country and track teams. I was part of the band, did those types of things, had a lot of fun. Went on to college at Ohio Northern University, on the northwest side of Ohio, where I majored in pharmacy. Graduated there, and then went back actually to my hometown up in the Warren Champion area, and then spent a couple of years there being a pharmacist, doing different things. Eventually went on to Ohio State in Columbus to get my doctor of pharmacy degree, and then that kind of was the starting point of my career at that point.
Fantastic. And so it's interesting. It's just, I think it's a showing how old we are. You didn't say the Ohio State, you just said Ohio State.
As an alum, I probably should have said the Ohio State University. So I'm probably reprimanded by some people out there. So.
Right. We're going to have the Ohio State police tracking us down when this interview launches. So tell us about being in a cover band. That sounds exciting.
So yeah, I mean, I've played music for the majority of my life. I mean, I started playing piano when I was in 4th grade, and then was part of the band, played trumpet. I always enjoyed music, was in band all through my high school, and I was also played through my college years, played also in an adult life in various churches, and about 10 years ago started playing in cover bands because they were a lot of fun, and I enjoy encouraging people through music. And so the current cover band I'm in, we've been together about 2.5 years, and again, we play covers from the 60s through today. Just have a lot of fun, and I do play the keys for that band. So
very cool. Well, thank you for sharing. Hey, is there a funny story that your family likes to tell about you that you'd be willing to share with us today?
Yeah, so to my demise, there's probably a lot of funny stories that they tend to share about me, but one in particular that goes back a few years now was the time that I was when my daughter, my first daughter, was going to be born. So my wife was pregnant at the time. We bought a secondhand crib, and a little piece on the crib had fallen off underneath, and I was gluing this little metal piece back onto the crib, and unfortunately, some of the glue, the super glue, dripped into my eye, and I super glued my eye shut. So that ended up in an emergency room visit.
Oh no!
So I could give you a lot more context to that story in a longer segment, but it's a story that people like to talk about, how Dad super glued his eye shut. So.
I bet, yes. And did you get any nicknames out of that?
No, I didn't, thankfully.
Well, I'll be thinking of a few later this afternoon.
Yeah, so my pregnant wife was driving her husband with his eye glued shut to the emergency room. So,
wow. Tell us about your family.
yes, sir, sure thing. So my wife and I have been married almost 29 years, and we have a daughter, 24, who actually is finishing up her pharmacy training, and she married her husband, who is also a pharmacy student. They're finished up their pharmacy training. I have a son who's 21, and he's an accounting finance major in college. And then I have a high school daughter who is a freshman this year. So,
Fantastic. Awesome. And what's everybody's names?
so my wife is Patty, and my daughter, oldest daughter is Rachel. She married Luke, and then I have Ben and Anna.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for sharing with us. So, Marc, tell us about how the business came about and at what point did you have the confidence that you could run your own business?
So about 11 years ago, well, actually, we'll go back a few years, maybe 12, 13 years ago. We were kind of in a challenging economic situation in the United States, and we were watching. We were in the middle of a recession, and I saw a lot of companies that were struggling financially. And as a pharmacist and someone who understood a little bit about the payer space and employee benefits, thought maybe I could help some of these companies financially. And so I was at the time the dean for a school of pharmacy in Ohio, and I got permission from the university's administration to start a company to just help out employers as a consulting practice, as something that we thought would be beneficial. And so it's really just started kind of as a side gig, if you will. And then did that with some colleagues, and then over the course of several years, the opportunities continue to expand. And so essentially what I often say is we kind of grew into the business. What started as a side gig turned into ultimately a full-time gig, and that's where we're at today. So
fantastic. Awesome. So tell us more about the company. What do you guys do? How do you help people?
So as a pharmacist, we recognize that a lot of healthcare costs are attributed to drug costs, and as the FDA continues to approve new products, new innovative products, the cost of those new products are quite high in some cases, and we watch a lot of employee benefits or employers struggle with employee benefit costs, and so consequently, we get involved with helping them reduce those costs. And there's a number of ways to do that. There's not a formula for it. It's not A plus B equals C. We do some analysis, figure out what makes sense, and then evaluate where the opportunities lie to reduce costs. In some cases, it's contract related. In other cases, it's vendor related. In other cases, it's just managing the overall members on the plan better. And there's a lot of different pieces to that. So that's one vertical of our business. Another vertical of our business is, as pharmacists, we also recognize we can help hospitals and health systems improve revenue or reduce cost, or a combination of both. We also work with physician practices, and we've tried to put pharmacists, embed them into physician practices to help them improve care, reduce cost. Pharmacists, historically have been trained in a more of a retail pharmacy center, in a dispensing role, and pharmacists have changed drastically in what their roles are today. So now we try to really optimize what a pharmacist is capable of doing and what they're trained to do, and try to build in expanded and innovative ways to use pharmacists in different practices. And then the third vertical, if you will, is where we help companies implement their pharmacy strategies. If they want to start a specialty pharmacy, start a retail pharmacy, if they want to build out a new company that relates to pharmacy in some way, we help and provide consultation to do that. So that's what we do in a nutshell.
Yeah, awesome. Your name is rather unique. Is there a story behind the meaning of your company name?
So Profero is actually the Latin word for forward, and it's intended to show that, and the team was strategic. So we realized that no one person knows everything. So we try to function collaboratively as a team. You're not hiring a consultant, you're hiring a team of people with diversified expertise, and we're going to move healthcare forward. And we believe that's a positive messaging. Collaborative team working together to move forward healthcare improvement, or move forward optimization of healthcare.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for sharing. That's cool. So, Marc, is there a story of somebody who pushed you or inspired you that you could do it even though maybe you thought you couldn't, that had an impact on you in the business?
So what I think, so for me personally, I think one of the greatest resources we are given are people in our lives. And we often talk about stewarding resources well, but we often put that in the context of financial resources, and not that you don't steward those resources well, but people resources are incredibly important to steward as well. And so I've always been big into networking, building relationships across all facets of my life. And that's personal from a friendship standpoint, but also from a professional standpoint as well. And so I've always had, let's say, a network of professional friends, colleagues, professionals that I've viewed as good friends that challenge and push me. And so I've had prior faculty members in my career, faculty members not only that taught me, but then I went back into academia. I was a faculty member for many years as being part of colleges of pharmacy. And so some of my colleagues also became good friends, mentors in the faculty space. But yeah, I mean, first of all, I mean, a lot of my success has been obviously the support and advocacy of my wife, Patty, and that's obviously the key to everything, quite honestly. But in terms of other people in my life, I think it's the collective wisdom of many people, and there's definitely people that are part of my life that are now part of my team now, but also who continue to advocate for us even outside of our company, who just advocate because of who we are or who I am.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. So, Marc, what's been the biggest learning that you've had as a business owner?
So well, I've learned a lot. And the one thing that I think is pinnacle to being a business owner is it really is a very rewarding environment. If you in fact enjoy innovation, entrepreneurship, you enjoy being a decision maker, making good decisions. But when you're the owner of a company, you have a lot of flexibility to do what you want. Now, sometimes that's a negative too, because I have to protect myself from myself.
Yeah.
And so I do need people around me to push back. It doesn't make any sense to, man, if you're a business owner and you have a people who work for you, or they're just, basically what I would call yes people or yes men and women, like that is of no value. You need people that surround you that are willing to push back, challenge you. And that way that's a protective mechanism. And the other thing is you don't need more of yourself. And a lot of times we sometimes will be drawn to people that are a lot like us, but those aren't the people that we need to necessarily be around. We need people to challenge us and to think differently, and maybe even, and not antagonistically, but to think differently to supplement our skill set and our perspective.
Yeah. We use the DISC assessment to help business owners to understand themselves and their team. And one of the things that comes up all the time is with relationship people who are married and also working together, and they're usually, those people are opposite. And so I remind them that the saying is true, that opposites attract, because subconsciously we know that we need the other person to complete us. And unfortunately, usually when we hire, we do the opposite of that, and we hire people who are just like us because it's comfortable. So I like what you're sharing in terms of that acknowledgement of we do need different people to help us to grow and develop and see the world differently, see the business differently, and help us protect ourselves against our blind spots.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that.
Marc, we know that business success doesn't happen in isolation. So tell us about one of your biggest challenges over the years, and maybe a fellow business owner who came alongside you and helped you through that.
So, one of the things that, and again, when you're a business owner, you're faced with a lot of challenges. I mean, there's just, it doesn't end. But one of the things that's important to recognize is the challenges bring opportunity. And I know that's an old adage that people say, challenges breed opportunities, and you can overplay that, but there's a lot of reality to that, where those challenges can easily be converted into opportunities for improvement or expansion, or even refining of what we're doing. So sometimes when you have innovative ideas, we can think a little bit naively, thinking, oh, well, everyone will enjoy this great idea. And as a company, how we often are bringing innovative solutions to the marketplace. So we may have an idea on how we help a company reduce their employee health costs, but that doesn't necessarily mean that your idea is necessarily a good one. And so I have a friend, colleague, and now he's retired, but boy, is he really good at calling out, like, and saying, that's not a good idea, or there's no business model associated with your idea. And again, I'm cautious about throwing names out because I could go down a whole long list of names of people who've been part of my life, but I really have appreciated, especially those who are a little bit more seasoned than me, who have experienced the challenges, and they're willing to say, here's what you need to do. Actually, one of my colleagues, mentors, one time sat across from me for lunch, and he said, he says, you get successful people together and business people together, and they like to talk about their success. But he said, you ought to sit across the table and talk about your failures, because it's the failures that made you successful.
Yes.
But no one wants to talk about your failures. They just want to talk about their successes.
Absolutely. Yeah. And in the corporate world, we're all trained not to, even, acknowledge that we failed, right? We're supposed to hide that stuff in the back corner and not, not allow it to happen, which is kind of weird because how did we all learn how to walk, right? We fell down multiple times. We failed tremendously until we figured it out. So, our founder, Brad Sugars, he's a quote that I love that he says is, he never fails. He either succeeds or he learns. And I love that perspective of, right, that all those failures are just us learning how to become better versions of ourselves the next time around.
Well, I'll tell you, as a musician, so when we play gigs, we do a lot of improv. But what's interesting is when, as a piano guy, if I mess up a riff, I have to quickly think of how to make that into a new riff. And I'm not going to stop playing. I'm not going to put a pause. I'm basically going to say, okay, we got to go a different direction, and we got to do it fast. So to some degree, you have to learn to take the mistakes and then to turn them into new trajectories.
Yes.
And so sometimes that is really beneficial.
Yeah, absolutely. So you said earlier that you don't like to call out people, so I'm going to put you on the spot here. If I asked you to pick 3 people in your business journey that you're most grateful for being there for you and helping with the business growth, who are those 3 people and how they help you?
Well, certainly, and I've already called out my wife, Patty. I mean, certainly she's foundational to all of our success as it pertains to supporting me and our initiatives. Probably another major colleague that has been key to our success has been one of my vice presidents, Cheryl Reese. She's actually come alongside and she's really good at complementing my skill set, because she has no problems pushing back and challenging me on my thoughts. And she is a key factor to also why we've been successful. And I would say I have a couple other mentors in my life. I'll call them out and say John Stanovich and Mike Bukach, and those guys have really been good at just saying, giving me straight what they think. They don't beat around the bush. They tell you this is good, this is not good, and they don't have to worry about hurting my feelings, because their relationships are deep and they're long. And so, you need those kind of people. And at the end of the day, I think we're in a culture today where people are somewhat offended or afraid to offend people. But the reality is that's dangerous to be around people who are afraid of that. You ought to be able to have a significant disagreement and then walk away and grab dinner together, and it be all completely fine. That's really what we need. So
I love that thought of, have an intelligent, helpful disagreement and then become friends, right? Go back to the friendship or the relationship after the fact, because you're right. It's not personal. If it's a true meaningful friendship or relationship, then you do want the best for the other person, which means sometimes sharing that hard truth, right?
Yes.
So, Marc, as you think about the next 3 to 5 years, what are the biggest challenges that you see that you'll face in achieving your goals, and who are the types of people that you're going to need to help you solve those challenges?
So one of the challenges we've had has been how to strategically grow. A lot of times we reactively grow. Opportunities come our way, and we react and create a means by which we can accommodate that growth. I would like to more strategically grow and plan out how we're going to take on new business or new clients, and so what kind of people do we need? We need strategic salespeople who can not only generate those expanded growth opportunities, but help us think through also how we're going to accommodate those expanded growth opportunities. So definitely in that category, and I need more people operationally minded. I'm very much the strategic visionary out there, but like having people around me can operationalize the vision, if you will, and I think that's a key factor. Sometimes your operations people can be in, as you probably would imagine, in disagreement with your visionary because there's sometimes a disconnect there. And so just learning to kind of pull and tug a little bit on what could be realized and bringing the operations people along, but at the same time, the operations people need to hold back the visionary too. So that's probably some of the challenges we're going to face. I mean, certainly the other big challenge is what's going to happen in healthcare at large. Healthcare is so complex. It's moving 5,000 miles an hour in a lot of different directions. And how are we going to rein this in terms of cost mitigation and bringing new solutions to the market, but having innovation that's bringing quality? You don't want to just do something because it's new, but how do you vet out innovative solutions? So I need people who are going to also think through, all right, this is an innovative idea, innovative company or vendor. How are we going to put that in place, and how are we going to protect the clients that want to, utilize that innovation but not put themselves at risk? So those are some of the, I think, key factors to the future.
I loved your analogy of the visionary versus the operations folks. So oftentimes what happens is the visionary has all these huge, big, hairy, audacious ideas of changing the world, but they struggle with landing the plane. Right. And so I like that you're surrounding yourself with folks too that can, connect the dots, put the processes in place and enable your vision to become a reality. And I also liked what you said about the give and take, right? Of hey, maybe that idea is just a tiny bit too big and the operations team needs to pull it a little closer to the ground. But then also, right, the reverse side is, the operations people are going to prefer to have certainty and want to make the idea too small. And so you being able to pull them back up into the clouds a little bit and expand their thinking in terms of finding that win-win.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I love metaphors and analogies, but if you look at a pulley system, in order for a pulley system to actually work, there has to be tension across that entire pulley system. As soon as you lose tension, you have no ability to move whatever it is you're moving. So you have to have, to some degree, tension in all facets of your business, but in a positive way. It needs to be functioning to move things forward. So tension is not a negative thing. It's just a mechanism by which we improve, a forward motion. So
I love that analogy. Thank you for sharing. So Marc, Jim Rohn, love him. There's a lot of great books. One of the things that one of his quotes is, we become the average of the 5 people that we spend the most time with. So as you think about that, what advice would you have for business owners who are trying to do it on their own and not bringing other people into their world?
Yeah, and I could totally see why people would struggle with that. I think, so I came out of academia. I spent a lot of time. And when we go through any type of schooling, whether it be high school or college or graduate school, I think there's a general culture and an assumption that's kind of fostered there that you have to independently succeed. You take your tests yourself, you do your projects yourself, you write your papers yourself. And if you do anything with someone else, it's considered cheating. Right. And then we go into the business world and we bring that mindset, and it's, now we actually need to collaborate. Now we actually, and anyone to suggest that they have all of the knowledge and intel to accomplish what they need to accomplish, I mean, that's typically naive or egotistical, but it never works. And I think what really needs to happen is we need to learn to, and there's a humility piece to that too. Like we have to self-recognize that we don't have all of the skills necessary to make an entity successful or an organization or business successful. So how do we bring the right people? Now part of that is trust. Mm-hmm. You can't just allow for anyone. So it has to be a group of people that you trust, that complement you, that you can actually disagree with and still maintain great relationships. But yeah, anyone that's trying to do it all themselves will ultimately, in my opinion, fail or come to a point where they realize they need to bring other people into the equation.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that perspective. I never thought of it that way, but you're right. The school system does teach us to do it on our own, and then we get thrown into the corporate world, and it's like, oh, figure out how to work with others and share and have 1 + 1 = more than 2.
Yes, exactly.
So, Marc, you've clearly been blessed with some incredible people that have helped you along your journey. If they were all on the show here today, what would you want to say to them?
Well, I'd certainly thank them for my friendship with them, their friendship to me, their willingness to be truthful and honest. So part of my perspective in life is to have fun in life as well, and to enjoy people and relationships. And so I've always appreciated people that have a sense of humor around me, and probably has cultivated that in myself as well. But I appreciate the fact that you can have great relationships, challenging disagreements, and yet have a lot of fun and a lot of humor through that. And those are the kinds of people that I'm around, and I appreciate those qualities of the people that I'm around. So
Awesome. Marc, it has been a pleasure speaking with you today. Thank you so much for being on the show.
thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
To everyone who tuned in, thanks for listening to the Self-Made is a Myth show with your host, Coach Tim Campsell. Be sure to help us spread the movement by liking the show and posting about it on your social media. And to join our movement, go to bemadtogether.com. All right, folks, that's a wrap. Make sure to pay it forward, and I'll see you all next time. Take care.